Today we're going to wrap one of these beautiful little mini crystal balls or marbles. This one here I've got is about 2 centimeters across. It's a cute little opalite crystal, this one. You can adjust your wrap to how big your little sphere is. So a marble or even something a little bit bigger would be okay as well. And we're using our 0.8mm cotton twine today. So I'm going to start out measuring my lengths. So I need for this wrap 2 lengths of 12 inches and 1 length of 48 inches. The first thing you want to do is just find the middle of your twine. So finding the middle of the longest piece and the middle of one of the shorter pieces. Putting the ends together and following it to the other end, finding the middle, and then we're just going to put these middles together and then just tie a little knot there. Then we're going to attach the other shorter piece onto our net as well. So just grabbing that shorter piece there, and we're going to attach it onto the first shorter piece that we put on. We're just matching the ends up there and following it down to where the knot is. Then we're going to tie a little knot at the bottom there, but it needs to be about 1.5 centimeters away from the first knot. So we just sort of measure that out and tie the knot, and then I like to sort of pull it tight on the ruler there so that you can see exactly where it's going to be. This bottom piece is quite important because it's the bottom or the base of the net, and it's going to hold your crystal in place. So you want to just double check that your knots are the right size, about that 1.5 centimeters, because that's going to hold your crystal in place. Now we're going to move on to the third knot for our triangle. Each knot needs to have 2 tails coming out of it, so we just need to find those last pieces that we can tie the knot in. And this is going to form the base of our crystal net. We're just going to be forming a triangle here on the bottom with our knots. We want this knot to be about 1.5 centimeters away from each other knot as well. You can see there, just with holding it together, you can see about where it needs to be, because you want that to be a perfectly symmetrical triangle there. You're just tying your knot and then pulling it tight so that you've got a nice little triangle there. And then you've got 2 tails poking out of each knot. You can see there 1.5 centimeters on each. And this is going to be the base of your macrame net. You can grab your little crystal ball there and hold it on just to start to see the way that it's going to form around the crystal. Now I find it's easiest at this part if I tape it onto the crystal, but it's still handy to be able to see those little knots there. So I just use little pieces of tape and pop them onto each side of the triangle there in a way that you can still see the knots as well. Then you can sort of actually let go of your tails and not worry about them moving anywhere. Now to form the start of our macrame net, we're going to just grab 1 tail out of each knot and bringing those 2 strands together and tying a knot in there as well. Just making sure that your knots are not going to be too far away. These ones are probably about 1.5 centimeters away from the first knots as well. And as you work around on each layer, you want the knots to be about the same distance away so that your macrame net looks nice and even. Just working around your crystal It's important that none of your little gaps in between the knots are big enough that your crystal can fall through. So just making sure that your little knotted sections are small enough. And then just moving around the crystal and doing that on each part. Just pulling the knots nice and tight. And just keep checking it as you go. So you can see here that I've done the next layer and it's all looking quite symmetrical, just making sure that top little triangle is staying in place. And so you can see around there, I've done those 3 knots. So now we're just going to move on to the next layer. So that's bringing one from each side together and tying them in a knot as well. So this part here is the bulkiest part of the sphere, of the crystal ball. So you can see it might need a slightly bigger gap before the knot, but still not big enough that the crystal can go through the hole. Then just working around your crystal for the next layer of knots. It's important at this stage, if your knots are not in the right position, that you just undo them and redo them in the right spot. It's really simple and easy to do it now, but if you get too far past this point or past the bad knot, you're not going to want to undo a whole bunch of knots. So if it's not in the right spot, just undo it straight away and put it into the right spot. That's the next layer done. Then you're getting to a point where you're going to put the top knot in to secure the crystal in the net. It's up to you if you wanted to do one more little knot there, but I don't like it looking too bulky at the top. I just grabbed 2 pieces from opposite sides and just tie them in a little simple knot, just left over right and right over left. Now you don't pull it really tight because you don't want it to pull down the side of your wrap, but this is mainly just to secure the top of the crystal and to give you something to secure onto. Once you've done that, you can pull all the rest of your tails upwards, making sure that they're all sitting nicely. You want them in the top of the crystal. Then I'm just going to hold them all together and just wrap one of the longer pieces around all those other threads really nice and tight, and about 3 or 4 times. So this will start to go around that knot that you just did as well to hold it nice and secure. Gives it something to hold on to. Now just grabbing one thread from the side of the bunch, we're just going to tie that longer piece that you wrapped around in a knot with that piece there. Just do a nice strong knot, two if it needs it. Then you should have 2 nice long strands and the rest of these little short pieces. So we're just going to cut all those little short pieces off and then singe them with the lighter just to make sure they don't fray. By this point it should be a really nice secure wrap, and it should be quite even looking as well. We're just singeing them and tapping on the lighter, make sure they're all melted together. And then at this point you can take off your little pieces of tape. Your crystal should be held in there really nice and securely with no movement. You can see here it's got a really cool little triangular design on the bottom there, and then it's sort of symmetrical the whole way around as well. That's our crystal ball or sphere macrame wrap.